On the 1st of November 2025, an ordinary train ride from Doncaster to London King's Cross just spiraled into absolute horror. What happened on that LNR service is an incredible story, not just of violence, but also of heroism. And it really makes you ask a pretty tough question about the dangers we see, and maybe more importantly, the ones we don't.
So just imagine for a second you're on that train. It's about 7:30 at night. All of a sudden, you hear shouting. This is what one passenger heard. At first, he actually thought it might be some kind of Halloween prank. But no, the panic was very, very real, and it was spreading like wildfire. People who were there described a scene of just pure chaos. You had passengers scrambling over seats, running through the aisles, just trying to get away from a man with a knife. A bunch of them, in a moment of sheer desperation, managed to get into the buffet car and barricade the door as the attacker was trying to smash his way in. Now, believe it or not, the entire attack, from that first scream to the train screeching to a halt, it all happened in just 14 minutes. Let's break down exactly how that terror unfolded. Okay, so look at this. Just 9 minutes after leaving the station, the first emergency call goes out. The driver's actions here were absolutely critical. They alerted control, got the train onto a slow line, and slammed on the emergency brake. In just 14 minutes, the train was at a dead stop at Huntingdon Station, where armed police were already swarming the platform. And a human cost in that tiny window of time, it was severe. 11 people were injured. 10 of them had to be rushed to the hospital, and at first, responders believed that 9 of them had life-threatening injuries. But here's where the story takes a turn, because in the middle of all that violence, some truly incredible acts of bravery took place. This isn't just a story about an attack. It's about the people who stood up to it. This right here is a powerful statement from the British Transport Police. They were talking about a member of the LNER train crew. This person directly confronted the attacker to protect passengers and was critically injured in the process. Their actions were a game changer, right in the middle of the horror. And it wasn't just the staff. Get this, another passenger saw a young girl was in danger and threw himself between her and the attacker. He was severely wounded, with injuries to his neck and head, but that selfless act, without a doubt, saved her life. Just a true legend. So, as the victims were being rushed to hospitals, the investigation was already kicking into high gear. And the biggest question for the police was obvious. What on earth was the motive for this horrific, completely random violence? Now, at first, the police declared what's known as Operation Plato. That's basically the code for a possible mass terror attack. But as they gathered more information, the counterterrorism units actually stood down. It became pretty clear pretty quickly that this was not terrorism. Police soon confirmed they had one person in custody, a 32-year-old UK-born man who lived in Peterborough. And here's the crucial part. They were confident he acted completely alone. No ties to organized crime, no links to any terror groups. And this is where it gets really interesting. The political reaction was almost instant and went in two totally different directions. On one hand, you had the government, through the Home Secretary, saying, hey, let's slow down, let's not speculate, let's wait for the facts. But on the other hand, the opposition was immediately calling for major policy changes, like a big increase in stop and search powers and more facial recognition cameras. Now, as shocking as this attack was, it's important to understand that it didn't just happen in a vacuum. To really get the full picture, we need to zoom out and see how it fits into a wider and frankly disturbing trend in the UK. Yeah, this really puts it in perspective. When you look at the Cambridgeshire attack next to other recent tragedies, like the awful stabbing in Southport or the attack in Reading, you really see the scale. And here's the thing that stands out. While, thank goodness, there were no fatalities on the train, the number of people injured was alarmingly high. So, up to this point, we've focused on a very specific kind of danger, right? A man with a knife, it's visible, it's terrifying. But what if the biggest threats aren't always the ones staring us right in the face? This whole incident really opens up a much bigger conversation about what safety even means. I mean, think about it. The attack was sudden, it was random, it was catastrophic. But is that the only kind of danger on our railways that fits that description? What if there's another kind of threat, one that's completely silent, that can be just as deadly? So on one hand, you've got the threat we've been talking about this whole time, a person with intent causing immediate, obvious harm. It's a danger we can literally see. But on the other hand, you've got a different kind of danger, one that's often invisible, right up until the moment it's too late.
the slow, quiet failure of the very systems we depend on. Now take a look at this. This is the aftermath of a derailment back in 2006. Not actually that far from where the 2025 attack happened. A train going 87 miles an hour just came off the tracks. And the cause wasn't a person. It was a single, heavy rubber panel on a level crossing that had just worked its way loose and ended up on the line. And here's where you see the chilling parallels. A train hit something it shouldn't on the track at high speed. The official report on that derailment said the root cause was, and I quote, a lack of adequate risk assessment and monitoring, a hidden failure with devastating potential. And that's really the heart of it. One danger comes from a person's deliberate act. The other comes from something as mundane as systemic oversight, a box that didn't get ticked. But for the passengers on that train, the result could be exactly the same, a sudden catastrophic event that nobody saw coming. So that leaves us with this final, really important question. We instinctively react to visible threats with visible solutions, more police, more cameras. But how do we guard against the invisible dangers, the systemic risks, the tiny, overlooked details that can lead to disaster just as surely as any weapon? Maybe real safety isn't just about looking for bad guys, but about paying much closer attention to the quiet, complex systems we trust with our lives every single day.